Les médias auront l'occasion de poser des questions suite à l'annonce. Nous vous expliquerons comment poser vos questions à ce moment-là. To start, I would like to introduce our MC today, Mr. Paul Chiang, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion. Mr. Chiang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. Hello, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. As Daniel mentioned, my name is Paul Chiang. I'm the Member of Parliament for Markham Unionville and also the Parliamentary Secretary for Diversity and Inclusion. Before I go any further, I would like to acknowledge that the lands on which I am joining you from are the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Kanawha, and Haudenosaunee people. I would also like to let the media joining us today know that the speakers will be available for a Q&A session following the speaking portion of the announcement. Our government believes that everyone, no matter who they are or where they live in this country, deserves a fair chance at success. However, all of us here knows that far too many of our neighbors, friends, and fellow Canadians experience the unacceptable lived reality of bigotry, prejudice, and hate. No one should ever have to face the trauma and pain that comes from being discriminated against simply because of who they are. And that's why today's event is so important. As you can see, I'm joined by my friend and colleague, the Honorable Minister Ahmed Hussen, the Minister for Housing and Diversity and Inclusion. We also have with us today Bernie Farber, Chair of the Anti-Hate Network, and Étienne Quintal, a researcher with the Neuberger Holocaust Education Centre, Maryam Faisal, a project manager of Anti-Hate Initiative at the Council of Agencies Serving Asians, and of course, Nigel Barriffe, a teacher and board member of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. I'm looking forward to hearing more from today's announcement, so I will hand it over to Minister Ahmed Hussen. Over to you, Minister.
Anti-hate toolkit.
Thank you so much, VS Paul Chiang. Paul, you're a friend, a colleague, and someone who has really has and continues to work really, really hard on issues around diversity and inclusion, someone who has a really strong track record when it comes to protecting our communities, but also making sure that our communities are included in all the different spaces that we find ourselves in. I want to acknowledge that the land on which I'm joining you from virtually is on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples. I'm pleased to be here alongside Étienne Quintal from the Neuberger Holocaust Education Centre, Maryam Faisal from the Council of Agencies Serving Asians, and Nigel Barriffe from the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, as well as, of course, my good friend, Bernie Farber. All of you are a big reason why we're able to make this important announcement today. And thank you for everything that you do every single day to promote inclusion and to celebrate our diversity. Merci pour tout. I know a lot of us recently picked up our kids from their last day or days in school. So I can only imagine how hectic your homes must be again. So thank you for taking the time to join. Merci d'avoir pris le temps de vous joindre à nous aujourd'hui. You know, the first time that I sent my kids to school, I remember, you know, worrying about them a little bit and hoping that they will be, that I'm sending them to a healthy and nurturing and safe environment. And that's what parents want their kids to be. They want their kids to be in a space where they're given the supports that they need to become what they want to be, to love who they love, and to support each other. And I always like to say that in Canada, diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. Inclusion is a choice that we must make, and inclusion is something that we must fight for every single day. You know, and this includes what we teach and when we teach those core values to our kids at home. Et nous savons que nos écoles contribuent à faire en sorte que le sentiment d'appartenance et de l'inclusion soit présent dans chaque classe, chaque jour. And we know our schools are helping to ensure that the sense of belonging and inclusion prevails in every classroom every single day. But as much as we would like to, as parents, we can't shield our children from everything. But we can give them the tools to make the right decisions when they react to real life situations, whether in person or online. And sometimes it's difficult to know how to respond when we don't see who or what is influencing our impressionable youth and impacting their well-being. And parents and educators are constantly looking for resources to not only confront, but put a stop to hate right in its tracks, and to help identify hate and to help prevent it. And so, c'est pourquoi je suis heureux de me joindre à vous tous pour cette annonce importante. That's why I'm really pleased to join the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, an organization that I respect very much, as they launch their new toolkit, Confronting and Preventing Hate in Canadian Schools. This new resource will be delivered through workshops in schools across the country, and it will help raise awareness with students about the real issues different communities have faced and continue to face, and support an inclusive learning approach. This toolkit will also help educators, parents, and communities identify, confront, and prevent hate in all its forms. Amazing work. Through the Anti-Racism Action Program from the Government of Canada, our government has invested $35 million to fund 175 anti-racism projects right across the country, including this toolkit that aims to remove systemic barriers faced by Indigenous peoples, racialized communities, and religious minorities. By creating this toolkit, the Canadian Anti-Hate Network is helping to empower parents and educators in the real fight against hate. Nos enfants méritent d'apprendre dans un environnement sûr. Our kids deserve to learn in a safe environment where they're free to be their true selves. Hate in any form is unacceptable and has no place in Canada. And we must say this unequivocally. And our government will continue to do our part to ensure that all Canadians, no matter who they are able to live in a safe and inclusive society where we all have a fair chance at success. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. And I now turn it over to Étienne Quintal to say a few words. Merci beaucoup.
Bon matin et bon après-midi à tous. Peu importe où vous vous trouvez en fait dans notre grand pays. Mon nom c'est Étienne Quintal. Je suis chercheur à la haine en ligne au Centre d'éducation de l'Holocauste de Toronto, qui va bientôt changer de nom pour le Musée de l'Holocauste de Toronto. Avant de continuer, c'est important aussi de reconnaître que je vous joins aujourd'hui à partir du territoire traditionnel de plusieurs nations, notamment les Mississauga du Crédit, les Anishinaabe, les Chippewa, les Adénossi et les Wendat. Le projet sur lequel je travaille ces temps-ci, en fait, se dénomme le projet de recherche et d'éducation sur la haine en ligne, puis vise à créer des nouvelles connaissances par rapport aux pratiques des mouvements haineux sur les réseaux sociaux, afin de renforcer la capacité de nos communautés à combattre ce fléau. On vient tout juste d'ailleurs de lancer notre première ressource publique qui s'avère être une ressource, en fait une liste de symboles haineux utilisés au Canada sur les réseaux sociaux, mais aussi dans la vraie vie. Cependant, aujourd'hui, je suis très heureux d'être avec vous pour vous parler d'une autre ressource éducative, qui selon moi lève la barre très, très haute pour tous les autres programmes du genre au Canada. Croyez-moi quand je vous dis que le Réseau canadien anti-haine, ce sont les experts dans ce domaine, puis qui travaillent d'arrache-pied sur ce programme d'éducation depuis des mois. L'une des conséquences de la pandémie qu'on vit encore aujourd'hui, ça a vraiment été l'isolation de nos jeunes qui passent de plus en plus de temps en ligne que jamais. C'est quelque chose que les mouvements haineux reconnaissent, puis ils en prennent avantage. Les jeunes d'aujourd'hui sont bombardés par de la propagande haineuse, que ce soit sur TikTok, sur Instagram, sur Twitter, dans un contexte où plusieurs n'ont pas accès aux ressources nécessaires pour comprendre ce qu'ils voient. Souvent, les groupes, les mouvements, les réseaux haineux utilisent des tactiques comme l'humour, le déni, afin d'éviter que le public lève leur garde. Malheureusement, plus souvent qu'autrement, les parents, les éducateurs, les autres adultes qui sont en position d'aider les jeunes sont dans la même position que ceux-ci, puis ils ne comprennent pas nécessairement en fait à quoi ils sont exposés. Ce programme, en fait, qui est préparé par le Réseau canadien anti-haine, contient les informations nécessaires pour que les adultes puissent comprendre les différentes idéologies, puis les différentes tactiques qui sont utilisées par ces mouvements, et même des scénarios qui sont basés sur des événements réels. C'est vraiment une ressource parfaite pour équiper les adultes qui souhaitent combattre la montée de l'extrême droite qu'on vit aujourd'hui, et puis pour équiper les jeunes qui vont la combattre dans le futur. C'est pas exagéré du tout de dire que c'est un combat qu'on ne peut pas se permettre de perdre. L'extrême droite menace tout ce qui nous tient à cœur, nos communautés, nos valeurs et même les droits qui ont été acquis par les communautés marginalisées au cours des dernières décennies. Comme les vaccins qu'on a reçus contre la COVID-19, l'éducation est un outil qui nous permet de se protéger soi-même, mais aussi de protéger nos proches. C'est donc d'une importance cruciale qu'on se retrousse les manches, puis que le programme d'éducation du réseau canadien anti-haine fasse son entrée dans les écoles afin de protéger la prochaine génération des Canadiens contre la haine. Merci beaucoup, puis je vais passer la parole au prochain allocuteur.
Mr. Farber.
Thank you very much. My name is Bernie Farber. I am the chair of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. The Anti-Hate Network is proudly anti-fascist and independent nonprofit organization that's made up of this country's leading researchers and experts on hate movements. Today, I'm proud to be presenting from the territory of the Mississauga of the New Credit and the Haudenosaunee people. And I want to let you know that as a network, we counter, we monitor and expose far-right hate-promoting movements, groups, and individuals in Canada using every reasonable, legal, and ethical tool at our disposal. Thanks so much, really, for joining us today as we launch our Confronting and Preventing Hate in Canadian Schools toolkit, which represents the next stage of our work to fight and win against hate. I'm especially pleased and proud to have Minister Ahmed Hussen with us today. Ahmed and I go back probably more years than we both collectively care to remember. And so I'm proud that we are standing side by side in this fight against hatred. And thank you, Paul, as well, for joining us as the Parliamentary Secretary. You too go back with me, and it seems that we've been fighting this scourge together for well and way too long. Now, the point of this free toolkit is to help parents, educators, and the community identify and intervene when a young person is being groomed and recruited by a white supremacist movement before it's too late. And it's not just a free toolkit. The Canadian Anti-Hate Network is launching a whole education program. We'll work with schools to carry out anti-hate workshops, and we're available at any time to help schools figure out difficult and potentially dangerous situations. There are too many hate crimes in Canadian schools, including just recently 7 children beating a Black Edmonton 8th grader while shouting racial slurs. I just had a meeting today with the York Region School Board, who indicated to me that through their resolved network of reporting racial incidents, the numbers have gone up to heights that they have not seen before. 3 times in the last year, pride flags were stolen from school properties and burned, the latest of which occurred only a few weeks ago in Windsor, Ontario. Then there are the children who marched across a playground in North Bay, Ontario, throwing seagulls and shouting Heil Hitler. There are too many stories about swastikas in high schools to count. And as a child of Holocaust survivors who was brought up very much post-war, yet in the kingdom of death, I can tell you that the swastika itself, the crooked cross, so named as the Nazi symbol, represents evil and death. Many individuals who commit some of the most horrific acts of violence motivated by hate are in or just out of high school. It's tragic just to think about it, including the 18-year-old perpetrator of the recent anti-Black mass murder of 10 people in Buffalo, New York. We need to do everything we can to make schools safe from violent hatred. That's why we have this new free toolkit available at antihate.school. Let me repeat that, antihate.school. It will have new content for educators, parents, and community members all of the time, always being refreshed. We are already doing these workshops. They have real-world examples and strategies for interventions. The feedback has been excellent, and we have to get this toolkit into schools right across our country. We want to especially thank Unifor, Franklin, Brian, and Lee for their generous contributions towards getting our education program off the ground. Thank you all very much, and I now pass it back to Paul Chiang, Parliamentary Secretary for Diversity.
Thank you so much, Bernie, for those words. And I would like to now invite Maryam Faisal to bring her greetings.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Mr. Chiang, for the introduction. My name is Maryam Faisal. I am the Anti-Hate Initiatives Project Manager at the Council of Agencies Serving South Asians. CASA, Council of Agencies Serving South Asians, works on colonized Indigenous land, specifically the territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit. And we believe there is no reconciliation under colonization without justice for the crimes that have been committed against Indigenous people. So CASA has already benefited from this toolkit even before this launch. I had consulted with the Canadian Anti-Hate Network for an online hate project we were running at CASA. And parts of the toolkit were shared with me that became integral for the education and awareness phases of our project. In all our other consults and consequent webinars, community leaders both encouraged and wanted to know, how can we get this information inside schools? How can we build the capacity to combat hate? What are the warning signs that we need to be on the lookout for? This toolkit, specifically prepared for schools by the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, fills that gap. Both online hate and hate in real life have increased exponentially, often with one leading or exacerbating the other. And hate is not limited to one act of racism. What we don't always recognize is that it is a breeding ground for radicalization that has already or may occur. We know that hate ideologies have been established for decades, and its proponents will find new ways to get their messages across to susceptible ears. Similarly, our counter efforts need to be just as, if not more established, thorough, and far-reaching to minimize that risk. This toolkit provides ways to identify those warning signs and how to intervene before that situation escalates. Most youth have unadulterated access to the internet, especially with the shift to online learning. And at the same time, Canadian youth are also more likely to experience hate online than other groups of people. This shows us just how much youth are exposed to hate on a daily basis, and education around it has to be just as accessible. Schools are the best place to start. Just as an example, we know that youth are using terms like incel and creating memes with overtly sexist connotations, and these terms have become a part of popular culture without always leaving room to discuss the gravity of the term and how sinister the ideology behind it is. And hate ideologies don't just remain ideologies. They in turn motivate acts of heinous crimes like we saw with the murder of the Afzal family in London last year. Like we're seeing with the rise of hate crimes against Asian Canadians. We're seeing the rise of systemic and institutional Islamophobia across the globe, which will have repercussions for Muslims in Canada as well. Education and intervention has to begin at the school level, and schools need to be equipped and trained to identify these signs. This is what makes this specific toolkit great at confronting and preventing hate and makes it extremely necessary. Thank you so much, and I will pass it back to Mr. Paul.
Thank you so much, Maryam, for your introduction. And I would like to invite Mr. Nigel Barriffe to bring his words.
Thank you, Minister. I want to just say a quick shout out and thank you to Minister Ahmed Hussen. I just want to testify to his work that he's done when the cameras are off. I know how hard he works on behalf of the community. And Minister Chiang, if you are a friend of Bernie Farber's, then you've got to be an awesome person also. As you heard, I'm also on the board with Mr. Farber, who, you know, shoulder to shoulder, we continue to fight against hate here in Canada, and I'm so proud of the work that and the vision that Bernie has brought here. We also have to give a big shout out to our staff, Evan and Elizabeth, and all of them that have done such an incredible work in bringing this resource here. Although I am a board member, a volunteer board member with the Anti-Hate Network, I'm also a school teacher here in the city of Toronto. And most recently, I was voted to represent thousands of teachers as the vice president of the largest teacher local here in the GTA. So it gives me the opportunity to visit many schools, to speak to thousands of teachers across the city. And when I'll share with you just a story I was shared with me just a few weeks ago with a school teacher, a young Black woman that loves her community, loves her classroom, but came in after lunch, entering into her classroom, looked over to see on a locker etched into it the N-word along with a swastika. Again, just a few weeks ago, as a parent in one of our parks, me and one of my good friends came across a swastika that was painted onto the park bench. And what we've heard numerous times across the city is that the N-word continues to be used inside the schools and outside in the classroom, outside in playgrounds. We know that many of our Jewish students and families have had racist epithets that are thrown at them from within the community. And as you've already heard, and what we know is that our Muslim students and families have been under attack for years. So, as a school teacher, I'm telling, and as a parent, we know that children are born innocent. They aren't born with hate. Hate is learned. And what this resource is giving us is an opportunity to unlearn that hate. And so that's why, it is increasingly so important for us to make sure that we get this resources into the hands of the school teachers in our public school systems, that we get them into the community groups, and that we help to give the resources to stop the hate where it's happening right now. One of the things that I hope that we can also talk about and how does the three different levels of government make sure that the schools have the resources to actually do the work in the classrooms, right? Because currently we've seen, unfortunately, too much of many of the funding that has been kind of clawed back or gone to elsewhere. So this is an opportunity for us to say, if it's really important for us to address hate, make sure that we also have the resources that are going to be necessary. And having a free resource that was designed by the Anti-Hate Network is a great start. So I just really greatly appreciate this opportunity to speak to this issue here today. I'm going to throw it back to the Honorable Paul Chiang, Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nigel, for your words. And I want to say thank you to everyone here today who made this announcement possible. Just a little background about myself. I was police officer for 28 years, and where I worked in the diversity and hate crime office for 15 years. So I'm well aware about hate crime that prevails through our society, and I'm so upset that the hate crime is on a rise in Canadian society. So I'm hoping that with this toolkit, we will be able to help our victims out there and get them to the road where they need to be. I would now like to hand it over to Avarik Afarian, our press secretary, to Minister Hussen to open up the media Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. Now, members of the media will be able to ask a question. That is one question with one follow-up. Les membres du média vont pouvoir demander une question. Donc, une question avec un suivi. Donc, si vous pouvez lever votre main, if you can raise your hand with the Zoom tool underneath, and I will call upon your name so that you can ask the question.
We have Cormac McSweeney.
Can you hear me now? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So this first question will be for both the minister and anybody from the Anti-Hate Network that wants to address it. And it's a little bit off topic, so I apologize. But we have Canada Day coming up convoy protesters who in their initial round of demonstrations on Parliament Hill, you know, we saw Confederate flags, we saw swastikas, things like that pop up through their demonstrations. They're going to be having another demonstration on Canada Day. They say they're going to be peaceful, but for the minister, you know, what concerns do you have about another convoy protest in the capital that could last days, even months, as some protesters say they're going to hang around all summer? And then for the anti-hate network as well, what are your concerns with seeing an you know, sort of convoy protest 2.0?
I'll let the minister go first if he's available. If not, you know, I can take it and then pass on to the minister. Well, why don't I begin and just give you some of my views. During the last protest, the so-called freedom protest in February, I remember being interviewed by a number of different media concerns. And I noted at that time, and this was really my big issue, that on Parliament Hill, I saw the largest and most significant and sad display of neo-Nazi, white supremacist symbols, from swastikas to Confederate flags, flying on and being hoisted in an area that stands for democracy, freedom, equity, and fairness. It bowled me over. The last place that I ever expected to see symbols of hate in such numbers was on Parliament Hill. And I want to be clear, it doesn't mean that everybody who attended the Freedom Convoy were white nationalists or white supremacists. But it does mean that in our city, or in Ottawa, and I say our city because I'm proudly a native Ottawan, now living in Toronto. But in Ottawa, the nation's capital, it became literally a hotbed of white nationalism, of anger, of seething hatred, of misinformation, of disinformation. And so my biggest fear is that in the summertime, when it's a lot easier to be outside and sadly a lot easier to cause all kinds of issues and the kind of trouble that we saw in February, that this may happen again. My hope is that authorities, having learned from the last time, have now got a plan that will deal with hatred, not with demonstration. We live in a free and democratic society. We are certainly permitted to demonstrate, but within the boundaries of the law. We do have law. We have fences of protection to protect minority communities and others against willful hatred. And the flying of swastika flags and Confederate flags are, to me, signs of perpetuating hatred. And I would hope that the police have a plan in place, ready to deal with it, so that we don't go through what happened last time. We can't let that happen. All the polls that I've seen recently, especially the one that came out of Great Britain only 2 days ago, highlighted Canada as a centrist, decent place to be, one of the best places in the world, and we want to continue to make that happen.
Is the minister going to respond as well before I ask my follow-up?
Unfortunately, the minister has had some technical difficulties and is disconnected at present. We're trying to get him back.
Sure, and I think somebody else from the hate network wanted to anti-hate network, I should say. Sorry about that. I didn't mean that. Somebody else from the anti-hate network wanted to respond there. I think I cut somebody off.
No, I was trying to say that minister is having technical difficulties.
All right, excellent. Okay, so and then my follow-up, I guess, would be back to anybody from the anti-hate network that wants to address this as well. The fact that many of these protesters plan on hanging around for months at a time, some of them say, we'll see whether it happens or not, but nonetheless, you've expressed your concern about the use of hate symbols that became too much, once is too much, but that you saw through the initial round of protests. So are you fearful that this is normalizing hate symbols, hate actions, hate in general, if we see protests like this continue over time?
It's a really good question. Actually, I wouldn't mind. My friend Étienne Quintal works with the Holocaust Education Centre and has done a lot of work on hate symbols themselves. And I think, Étienne, if you have a few words to say on this, it would be very helpful to the media.
Yeah, absolutely. Could I please get the question reiterated just to make sure I
Yeah, not a problem at all. So I'm just wondering, since you obviously, we saw hate symbols like Confederate flags, Nazi flags, people claiming that they were white supremacists at the initial convoy protest that happened on Parliament Hill. And if we see similar things happen at this protest coming up around Canada Day, as well as the promise from some protesters to continue demonstrations throughout the summer, do you fear that this will increase some sort of normalization of hate symbols, of hate in general in Canadian society?
Yeah, I think what's really important to note here is that, we've talked about the swastika that was displayed, and we talked about the Confederate flag. What we're not talking about is the number of other hate symbols that have been displayed at these rallies. Symbols that don't necessarily have hateful meanings to a lot of people, the red ensign to be, for one. And so I think it's important to realize that there's already an extent to which a lot of different hate symbols that we don't understand are already normalized. And it's important to focus on education and on public awareness to make sure that when these displays do take place, even when it's symbols that people are not aware of, there's that capacity for the community to respond and to acknowledge what's happening.
And if I could also add, Cormac, the question around normalization is one that really concerns me. We're seeing it happening in the United States. We're seeing it happening in certain countries in Europe, and I fear that a symbol like, especially the Confederate flag and the Nazi swastika, if people get used to seeing that at rallies, it not only loses its impact, but it increases for those who are leaning towards racism and neo-Nazism. If they see it all the time, they begin to believe that there's something okay about that. There is nothing okay about displaying a Confederate flag, which is a symbol of slavery. There's nothing okay about displaying a Nazi swastika, which is a symbol of genocide. There's nothing okay about it. And if the truckers are truly as freedom-loving as they claim to be, while rejecting, as they said on interviews, the flying of the swastika in Parliament Hill, they would have rejected it immediately. They would have self-policed immediately. That's not happening. They're not doing that. And so, yes, I have some serious concerns that as we continue down this path and we normalize racism, that younger people are going to become, sadly, more attracted to it. And I see the minister is back, so I'm going to pass it on to the minister to make some remarks on this really important issue as well.
Thank you, Bernie. I apologize for not being available earlier. I was having some technical issues, but now I'm back. Yes, I mean, look, this is not an issue that can wait in order to be addressed. This is a very urgent issue, and as Bernie has highlighted, and the Canadian Anti-Hate Network has highlighted repeatedly, we need to be extremely vigilant. We need to take serious action to continue to combat hate in all its forms, and we need to empower parents. We need to empower young people. We need to empower Canadians with the right tools to confront hate and stop it in its tracks. Otherwise, our institutions will be threatened. Our citizens. And this will threaten our community safety. And so we have to do everything that we can as a government to support those who are doing the heavy lifting, those who are confronting hate every day. And we have to continue to re-examine further ways in which government can support this work by, for example, doing everything that we can to combat hate, to continue to be vigilant against hate groups, targeting them, and making sure that we continue to take serious action against them.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you, Cormac. Next question will go to Raisa Patel.
Hi there, Minister. I'm wondering if you think that tackling harmful online content through education is something that goes hand in hand with introducing legislation on online safety, or if you view educating Canadians about online harms as maybe a less controversial and maybe more effective pathway to protecting youth and Canadians of all ages?
I don't think it's one or the other. I think we need to do both. I don't think combating online hate should be viewed as being controversial. We know that what happens online has real world consequences, real life consequences, and so we have a duty to protect Canadians from those real life consequences that originate from online hate. And we also need to make sure that online platforms, online social media platforms are held responsible for the hateful content that are sometimes posted on their platforms and have real life consequences to Canadians. So we have to do both. We have to equip Canadians, support them, support organizations like the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, but also look at further ways to use all the tools in our toolkit to combat hate, both off and online.
And if I can, I had a very good experience of being appointed by the federal government to sit on the experts panel for online hate, making recommendations for legislation to deal with online safety and online harms. And I can tell you straight out that one of the recommendations that we made was that along with legislation, there really does have to be an educational component. Law, and the minister's quite right, law alone doesn't do the trick, but law mixed with understanding, mixed with education, that is really the menu to begin to deal with hate effectively. And sadly, really, schools have not been in the business of having to deal with hatred. They've been in the business of education. But truly, and Nigel has said this, children spend the vast majority of their day at school. And if we can reach them from the very beginning, from the very outset, giving them the tools necessary, giving their teachers the tools necessary, like this toolkit, mixing that with the recommendations that have come out of the Online Harms Committee in relation to the absolute need for online harms legislation now, not yesterday, but now, I think we will be on the road to healing. But we're beyond talk now. That's why we put this toolkit out. This toolkit is not talk, this toolkit is action. Legislation is not talk, legislation is action. We look forward to both.
Thank you both. And as a follow-up, this might be a question for the Anti-Hate Network, but anyone can feel free to weigh in. In terms of youth specifically being targeted by hate propaganda campaigns online, do we have evidence of these campaigns rolling out in Canada recently? And through what channels is this mostly happening?
I'm going to ask our Deputy Director, Elizabeth Simons, if I see that she's on here, and they're doing the actual deep dive work on this. And so, Elizabeth, if you can take this question, I'd be grateful. If not, I'm happy to answer it.
Hi, yeah, sure. Hi, Raisa. So in terms of evidence of campaigns targeting youth rolling out across Canada, I mean, the campaigns is I'm not sure if that's the right word, because it's ubiquitous, right? Anywhere that youth are online, there are hate movements and networks looking to recruit them. So like what I can tell you is that when it comes, like when the Institute of Strategic Dialogue put out a study a couple of years ago, I think it was their 2020 study, it actually showed that Canada was disproportionately represented across various kind of well-known like hate forums like 4chan, also the Iron March Network, and hate accounts tied to platforms like Twitter and YouTube. In terms of, you know, population proportionality, Canadians were an outsized representation. So there are a lot of studies in terms of what amount and what percentage of youth are exposed to hate content. There are also networks within Canada who have actively targeted youth. So a couple of examples would be the Canada First movement, which is led by Tyler Russell. When we exposed their private chats, there was actually youth as young as 14 years old. There's also the Right Wingism Network, which is a transnational network of teenagers who have a number of Instagram accounts worldwide, and a number of them across Canada, various provinces and regions. And the majority of them are school age, under 18. So the campaigns themselves, in a lot of cases, are actually run by other youth, in addition to the amount of hate propaganda that you find even in seemingly benign spaces like Roblox or iFunny, you know, various websites that are geared toward children, but actually have a hefty amount of hate content. So I actually do have some like statistics and numbers, but I have studies and things that I can share with you. So maybe what I'll do is I'll send you an email after the event, and I can give you some more hard data if that's what you're looking for.
And I would also just like to reiterate that the last two mass shootings that we have seen in the United States were perpetrated not by elderly or older adults, but actually by kids. So Buffalo, we had, I think, 10 people of color who were murdered by an 18-year-old. In Texas, only recently, we had 21 children murdered, shot in their classrooms by a 17-year-old. I mean, and I'm not saying that the 17-year-old in this particular case was linked to white supremacy, but the fact is that young people are the ones that are involved. Here in Canada, Alexandre Bissonnette was in his mid-20s when he walked into a Quebec mosque and murdered 6 Canadian Muslims peacefully at prayer. So we know that if one of them is reached, either through some of these very dastardly and racist websites, only one, that's really all it takes, is just one to be moved towards violence. And sadly, I mean, back in my day, we were worried about what I called hateful words and hateful symbols. And we saw swastikas on synagogues, and we saw horrible, nasty words virtually all the time. But the fact of the matter is that these words have now turned to hateful actions, assaults, and even murder. And they're coming from someplace. So, you know, please, I'm glad, Elizabeth, you'll be able to share some of the stats with Reza, and we're, of course, free to share those stats with anybody else who wishes to have them.
Thank you, everyone. It seems that Minister Hussen is having some issues again, technical issues, I mean. There are a lot of journalists to give everyone time to ask their questions and get an answer. Let's please keep this brief, one person to answer. So I will pass to the next person, Roy from Omni. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello. This question is addressed to Minister, but then I suppose I can ask Mr. Paul Chiang from the Parliamentary Secretary. I would love to know your reaction to the recent comment made by Quebec Premier Legault's comment that it is important, I'm quoting him, it is important that we don't put all cultures on the same level, and that's why we oppose to multiculturalism. And I just want to hear your reaction to that particular comment, and everybody else can also jump in as well. Thank you. Hello?
Somebody want to answer the question?
We do not have Minister Hussen back on the line yet. Sorry for technical issues we're facing. If someone from the Anti-Hate Network wants to go ahead.
Listen, just on a very general level, Canada is an accepting nation. We are still in the midst of one of the world's greatest experiments, and it is called multiculturalism. All of us, whether we are Jewish or Muslim or Catholic or Hindu or Buddhist or Zoroastrian, whether we are white or black or South Asian or First Nations, we are all together in this. So I regret that the Premier, if indeed he said it as you described, does not see all of us at the same level. This is what we strive for as Canadians, and my work over the last 35 years has been to promote this kind of equity and diversity and fairness. This is what differentiates us from countries like the United States, which has become a concept of a melting pot where you just come in and you become poof American. Here we're proud to be both Canadian, and I can say I'm a Canadian Jew or a Canadian Muslim or what have you, because we can actually celebrate these cultures together. So that's my personal thing. That's where I come from. But many Canadians that I have been in contact with over many years, actually, they believe this. They want this. This is part of why Canada is Canada.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to jump in as well?
We are having a lot of technical issues. No one from the federal side is on here right now due to technical issues. Roy, you can get in touch with me and I will make sure to provide some answers. If there are any questions from media that are for Minister Hussen, I will be more than happy if you get in touch with me due to all these technical difficulties, and I will do my best to provide answers. If there are any questions here for the Anti-Hate Network, please raise your hands and we will continue that way. So Roy, if you have a follow-up question, please go ahead.
No, I don't have a follow-up question. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Bessner from CJN Daily.
Oh, hello. Hello.
Ellen, I think you're still on mute.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yay. Hi, everybody. Okay. Yes, it's a question. I have two quick ones. It's just fact checking. Why did the schools out this week? Schools are done mostly across Canada. So why wait? Why release it when nobody's there? Is this going to be done through in-service training all summer, or how is this going to be put into the schools?
Well, and Elizabeth, if you have any other further information, I'll just tell you generally, Ellen, this is the official launch, but there have been schools already that have taken advantage of this. The toolkit has been ready for a little while, and sometimes, the wheels of government just don't turn that quickly, so we couldn't get the launch done as quickly as we want. This toolkit will be around forever. There's a 2-month summer break. There is summer school. There's all kinds of opportunities over the summer to use it, but you can be sure that it will be in full use in September as well. Sure, we would have liked to have done this, 4 months ago. Unfortunately, it got done today. It's done. We're ready to rock and roll. Some of the schools that have already used it will tell you, the positive experiences that they've had, and I'm assuming that many others will gravitate to it as well. Elizabeth, is there anything else that I haven't added?
No, I don't think so. I would just maybe add that we've been providing the toolkit to educators, school professionals, community members for a number of months now, and we've even been delivering workshops based on the toolkit. So while this is the official launch, certainly, yeah, we've been working with this and within the community for some time now.
Awesome. Okay, fact check number 2. Can you tell us what so it was based on, I read the toolkit, it's lots of good graphics and everything. Can you tell, most of it was based on an American previous study from 2019. Is that accurate, or can you say how much was redone with Canadians in mind?
Yeah, so we did work with the Western State Center, which is a wonderful organization out of the US that did a fantastic toolkit a couple of years back. So we collaborated with them in terms of the scenarios section. So we worked with them really extensively on the scenario section because they had already done a fantastic job. We did tweak that to be a more of a Canadian angle, but we also added a number of sections and also built in the Canadian context. So we added the sections about various ideologies. We added a lot of Canadian examples, both from within schools as well as in the community, as well as media. So we built it out a fair bit, but what we did collaborate with them on, we did use explicitly Canadian examples.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Ellen, I'd just like to also just, because it is not for instance, in Ontario, it is not part of our curriculum yet. It has not been, there's not a formal process to ensure that classroom teachers and educators in the public school system access and get to use and are held accountable to the tool. And I think that that's also going to be some of the work that hopefully we can work with the minister's office. We can work with the different provincial governments to have this embedded in the curriculum, because that is how we can be sure that the tool will be used on a daily basis.
And so let's not forget private schools, religious day schools, Jewish schools, Muslim schools. I mean, this is important, not just for the public school system, but for school systems literally across the country.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Up next, we have Aaron from Mink Pao Daily News. You can go ahead.
Oh, hello. My question is to the Minister Hussen. Is he back?
No, Minister Hussen is not back. He still has technical issues. So at this time, only members of the Anti-Hate Network are still available for answers. If there are, this is directed to you and anyone else from the media that is present. My contact information is on the media advisory. Please feel free to give me a call or send me an email, and I will get back to you immediately. We apologize for the inconvenience that this has caused.
Okay, I'll contact you later, because my question is to the housing affordabilities.
Yes, please get in touch with me and I'll be more than happy to provide an answer.
Okay, great, thank you.
In that case, up next we have Fakiha Baig. I am sorry if I mispronounced your last name. If you can unmute yourself.
Hey, it's Fakia. I think you were close.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was wondering maybe Nigel could elaborate a little bit on this. He just mentioned that provinces could embed this into their curriculum. Do you know if the federal government or if the Hate Network, do you know if any provinces in Canada is considering embedding this toolkit into their curriculum, has already done it? Are you in talks with any provinces at the moment?
I brought that up as I feel like that's an important next step. I know that Bernie and staff, all of us, we are all trying to use our networks to make that the next step. What I was just trying to point out, and Bernie's quite right, even with our private schools, and all the different kinds of schools in Ontario, they all still have to teach what's in the Ontario curriculum, and all the provinces have that. So in my opinion, embedding a tool like this in the curriculum, along with providing the resources and the money that would be needed to properly train folks to use the tool in classrooms, K to 12. That is an important next step or the work that I feel like we're going to need to do. And that's why it's so wonderful to have both the minister's office here on the call, but it's going to take all the levels of government to work together to make that happen.
And I just had one question just to clarify the scenarios that are in the toolkit. Maybe Elizabeth could answer this one, but you said some scenarios are American, but can you confirm that they're all real scenarios, like they were actually gathered from educators and from schools? And are they also Canadian examples, the scenarios? Like I think there was one of the student drawing swastika on a table, and there was one of student delivering flyers. These are all real?
They're all real. So there are no American examples in the toolkit. Everything in the toolkit is real Canadian examples that we have found in media or our own experiences monitoring, or have heard from school professionals or community members. So the scenarios in the toolkit deal with increasing severity of what hate might look like within the school community. So, you start out with like anonymous hate promotion. So that could be graffiti, that could be the swastika on the desk, that could be, when you don't know who's behind it, but it's happening and you have to deal with it, right? So, it starts from there and then it escalates all the way to overt hate organizing within the school community and outside the school community. And the scenarios deal with suggested approaches for different members of the school community, from school professionals like educators and administrators, to parents, to other students, like, in engaging with their peers, how to do so safely, as well as concerned community members and family. So each scenario has kind of an explanation of what it is, examples of what they are, how to deal with it, and the whole toolkit is littered with examples from Canadian stories. So there aren't any American examples, but the scenarios themselves was a concept that was initially developed by the Western States Center, which is an American organization. And we worked with them to develop the toolkit. So it was in partnership with them, but it's totally within a Canadian concept.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this wraps up today's Q&A session for this announcement. Thank you everyone for being present. And I would like to apologize once again for technical difficulties. Merci beaucoup tout le monde et à la prochaine. Merci.
Could I just say one word before we just close this? Just to reiterate that silence against race is no longer an option. We now have the tools through this toolkit. Now we need our partners to work with us to stop hate. Thank you all very much for participating.
Thank you.